Does everybody know what time it is?
Home Impodcast time!
That's right. A company that is a reproduction of Binford Tools is proud to present a home improvement podcast. My name is Adam, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jordan Spartion Lyons. How you doing, Jordan?
I'm doing pretty good. It's always a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to chat a little bit more about an episode in where Al gets a lot of screen time, a lot of face time, and I don't even know what we're going to talk about in this opening scene, our opening sequence. We talked about so much.
Yeah, except you are, though, because we already talked about it and planned it. So we were going to talk about, Tim is often sent shirts or sweatshirts from, and that's part of the trivia of home improvement. These schools would send him swag, if you will, paraphernalia, if you will, clothing, if you won't, of various schools across the great state of Michigan, and you and I went to two of those great schools. You attended Michigan State University, and I attended Tim Allen's alma mater-ish, Western Michigan University, which is kind of drawn upon in this episode. So we were just going to kind of talk about our collegiate experiences to start things off.
Yeah, and I suppose I can go first. I graduated from Michigan State a few years ago with a degree in marketing. 4 wonderful years there. Some of my most favorite memories are just going on the giant campus, taking nice bike rides. I lived there a couple of summers too, which is fun, just being around that city in the summer. Going to football games was great. I was at a couple of big football games in recent memory, the Notre Dame Little Giants game, the Hail Mary Wisconsin game. So yeah, a lot of my memories are maybe tied to football and whatnot. But yeah, a lot of Saturday mornings spent playing basketball at the intramural centers, and it was a good time. I'm not sure if I actually ended up getting a degree that I super enjoy.
Then you switched your major, or are you talking about the major, the degree you have you don't enjoy?
Maybe a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, I started out as a finance major. Switched into marketing, which is okay. I don't mind marketing as much, but I don't, maybe looking back, I might have gone into something more into writing or editing or something like that. But there's still time. There's still time. So let's hear a little bit more about your Western Michigan experience.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I attended Western Michigan University, Bronco Nation. Real strong football team this year. Was not the case when I was there generally, though I think they went to something called the Texas Bowl my first year. But beautiful. I love Kalamazoo. The campus is fantastic. It has only continued to get nicer since I've left. And just tons of fond memories, great classes, great professors, and every once in a while, walking around my current DeKalb landscape, I do miss the hills of Kalamazoo and just some of the culture. But it's well represented. What Western Michigan is throughout the series, and we'll get a little shout out to it today. So yeah, you thinking about going back to school, Jordan?
Yeah, no.
No, you're done.
Yeah, no thanks. I don't want to do that again.
Right.
So not sure what I would even want to do.
What are your aspirations?
This
just to get through the entire episodic home improvement run.
Yeah, I mean, what else do you want?
Yeah.
That and to find some way to play more basketball. Mm-hmm. So that's about it.
Yeah, well, hey, both achievable. So you know what else is achievable though, Jordan? Well, I suspect you'll have to tell me if it's achievable. But do you think that perhaps you could go ahead and maybe cue up those grunts for me?
I don't think so.
I don't think so too.
No. All right, here they come.
Sure, it's all saved to me. Oh, ah! Oh no! Oh, yeah.
Now it's time for Bits of Wisdom. This week's bit of wisdom comes from the Tim Allen text, "I'm not really here." The chapter is entitled 2. The way we treat words is odd. Words are combinations of letters. There's no inherent meaning. At best, they're our way of trying to describe reality, and even then, they are only an indefinite approximation. Words are maps to the territory of existence, and we shouldn't confuse the map with the territory. Unfortunately, we often do. This has been your bit of wisdom.
Wow, that was pretty wild.
Existential.
Yeah, it sounds like he was extremely high right when he wrote this.
Acid trip or something.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
This is quite a chapter. I read through it more so than perhaps I did in the previous one. And, what I just read leads into a section on curse words and like racial terminology, and that's relatively uncomfortable. And then he talks about how his dad was hit by a car when he was 11 and by a drunk driver and killed. It's not the silly, jovial read that "Don't Stand Too Close to a Naked Man" was. He's tackling something a lot bigger. I don't think he's necessarily sure what it is. I'm not sure what it is, but it is, as I said earlier, very existential, very deep. So.
Yeah, seems like a different Tim, and I'm excited but yet fearful at what might come next.
Yeah, and to move on to something that's not existential or deep, this week we're talking Al's Fair in Love and War, and this episode debuted April 28th, 1992, and it was written by Elliot Stern. And Jordan, do we have a synopsis?
Yeah, we do. I also wanted to add real quick that Elliot Stern also did Up Your Alley, Flying Saucers, and Mo Better Blues.
Oh, two of those we really like. One of those we really don't like.
This one, I guess, for both of us is going to fall somewhere in the middle, but we'll see.
You might be surprised.
All right, well, I will go ahead and read the plot synopsis, which is by Bernie.
Who? Come again?
Bernie, you're
Bernie, yeah, my old Western Michigan University roommate, Bernie.
He's back.
Yeah, good.
All right, so Greta is in the audience, and Al wants to ask her out. He is self-conscious and messes up on the show and asking Greta out. Jill suggests a double date with Tim and Jill, Al and Greta. Tim finds Jill's old diary and wants to read it.
So many names.
Yeah, just...
Greta, Al, Jill, Tim, Jill, Al, Greta, Tim, Jill. It was succinct. Thanks, Burn Man, or Burn Lady. I suppose it could be Bernice. Yeah, so let's get into it, I guess.
All right, so we open backstage on a Tool Time episode before the show starts, and we have Al and Tim kind of staring at this TV, kind of surveying the crowd, seeing who's in the crowd, and was this weird?
It was weird because they're looking at the audience, but they're also standing directly in front of the audience, so they could have easily just turned around and looked. I don't know if that was the result of them trying to be kind of incognito with regards to them kind of scoping out Greta or not. It was sort of a meta beginning, because they're watching Tool Time, but they're also part of Tool Time, and we're watching them. So yeah, it reminds me of something that Tim would have kind of discussed in this "I'm not really here" text. Just multiple levels of viewing and just multiple universes. But again, this episode does not seek anything in that regard. Nothing very grand is brought up. But it was a strange start, and it didn't really make sense.
Oh, and it doesn't necessarily get any clearer. Greta apparently sent a message backstage with her perfume, and all of the eyes on the message are dotted with hearts. So we learned that Greta's in the crowd. Al wants to ask her out, and that's kind of what we're going to focus on for this almost whole.
They're doing everything they can to remind the viewer who Greta is. So when Al goes, "Greta Post is here," so he uses the full name, and then Tim's like, "Who's Greta Post?" And it's like, "Oh, it's from when we did Lady Tool Time." So viewers are supposed to be like, "Oh yeah, Lady Tool Time. I remember now."
It was 3 months ago.
Yeah, 3 months ago. Oh yeah, that great Lady Tool Time episode where Jeanette Dubois came out of the audience and she acted like an old lady. But yeah, they're really spoon feeding you the Greta Post stuff early on, and I guess they would have to, because they are referencing something that wasn't especially memorable when it happened, and they're picking it up several months later.
Yeah, right. Well, so yeah, it's time for the show to start. Today's show is supposed to be about outdoor lighting, but Al is a little bit flustered with Greta in the audience. He's not being his usual self. He says it's Thursday when it's actually Friday. He says the show is going to be about how to build patio furniture. They show Greta waving in the crowd, and Al has the message in his front pocket, and so he's really just, his mind is not in home improvement. And he kind of screws up here. He drops a tray full of outdoor lighting, due to the essence of Greta, and they decide to cut at this point.
Yeah. A couple of things. The essence of Greta sounds like a band name. Two, if they have the ability to just shut down the show and like restart, why don't they do that every time Tim screws up? And we've talked about like whether like they're recording and it's on delay or the scheduling versus the recording or whatever. But this is like the one instance where they're like, all right, we're gonna start from the top. But they never have done that any other time.
Well, it kind of goes against Al's like competent persona. It's not really in his nature.
So you're saying they don't mind doing it with Tim because it's just part of the show, but when Al does it, it's not on brand?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Is that what you're saying? No. They do the bit where also they're talking about lighting and is he talking about like lighting a barbecue? Is he talking about lighting a barbecue or just like lighting a side yard or what's the impetus there? Or do we not know?
Well, they're talking about outdoor lighting, so they're lighting up your backyard or your porch or whatever it is.
Whatever, it doesn't actually matter. But he does that joke that he did a few weeks ago where he shows like 3 photos. And the first photo is like regular, the second photo is regular, and the third photo he shows like the Washington Monument. It's like in what he did, like the 2 photos in the last one he showed was like man-made things, and the last one was Indy. He did that a couple weeks ago, so it's the exact same joke. And once he shows the Washington Monument, which is supposedly like fantastically fantastically lit according to Tim, and then they play like some patriotic music, and the whole scene is it's a debacle from A to Z here. It's setting up the whole Greta Post Al thing, but there's really not much else to glean from here, and it doesn't. Nothing really is made of the lighting, I don't think, later on.
No, and they kind of move on from the scene at this point. They go to the Taylor homestead where Tim is checking in on Brad, who's studying some math, with Jennifer Sadarsky. So they are together a lot this episode. At this point, they're actually studying.
She looked like 5 years older to me.
Did she? She looks...
Didn't she look... She looked... I don't know, like, she just looked... You didn't think that at all?
Not
I thought she looked
really.
way older.
Well, I don't know.
Okay. I mean, I felt like he looked the same, but it looked like she'd aged like a year or two. She's, like, taller than him, and...
I haven't seen Brad in a while. Maybe I just forgot.
Yeah, maybe you just forgot what Brad looked like. His hair's still on point, though.
It sure is. And Tim comes in and... he does the dad thing where you kind of like make a joke, and Brad is embarrassed more than once in this episode.
Classic dad though, to like walk by and be like, I used to be kind of a math whiz. It's like, yeah, okay, Tim, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, and this episode is kind of strange for Brad. Like he's in several scenes, but he doesn't really say anything. But he goes, "Dad," and he just kind of like reacts to his dad.
Yeah, he's omnipresent, but he's not given a lot to do. He just kind of is like whining and sort of moping and embarrassed. At this point, you kind of know what to expect out of Tim, out of your dad. So you either, I don't know, just roll with the punches. He's not gonna not make bad jokes or interfere. Also, Brad is like 7 years old and he's hanging out with a girl all the time. So maybe you should complain about what your parents are doing.
7 years old? Are we? I thought
10.
we decided he's a little bit
10,
older.
11.
Than that. Yeah, that's probably a little bit closer. But so yeah, in the garage, Jill is spring cleaning, and they find, Tim goes in there. They find some old pictures. They're at an old dance. Some of Jill's old hair that she used to wear. A college diary, which is kind of what Tim is interested in here, and we'll see the diary more than once in this episode. Tim wants to know what she wrote about in college, and what's written about him in there, as all men are interested in.
Yeah, they mention they talk about a steamy night at Saugatuck, and that's. Are you familiar with Saugatuck?
Heard of it, but never been there.
Likewise, yeah. So not much to say on that. I was going to ask you, have you ever kept a diary or done anything along those lines? Journal, I suppose.
A couple of times actually. There was a time where like I had an online one where I wrote everything down, everything that happened each day. But now I kind of have one that's a handwritten one that I just kind of write different things. Like I write every once in a while when something big happens, like my nephew being born or something like that. I write about like what goals I might have for the year and kind of keeping track with
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. So I'm not like super good at it, but I do a little bit.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
what about
Okay.
you?
I used to be really good about like just writing down. I used to keep like a notebook where I would just log like everything. Every movie I saw, I would like write it down, rate it, and then write a little like a sentence or two. Same with books. Same. I keep track of like where I was in various television shows, and I would write like journal entries as well every couple of days. But it's really gone by the wayside, and I'd like to pick it back up, but it just I don't know.
Yeah, life moves fast.
Yeah, but that's I don't know. I feel like that's kind of me letting myself off the hook. I think it's something I could do. It's just it's one of those things that I used to really be into, and all of a sudden it just kind of stopped. I guess it is the product of having more on your plate. But I did used to do a lot of like personal writing and stuff, and yeah, I like it, and I think it's kind of an important thing for people to do. To reflect and like you said, remember things that are important to you or.
Yeah, it definitely helps with memory.
Definitely.
So.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention in this scene, and really throughout the episode, we get them mentioning that's like there's very strong hint that like spring is the season of love, and all this kind of stuff happens in spring. And I didn't really know that was kind of a thing, like an adage that I wasn't aware of.
That's kind of Kid Rock sings about summertime in northern Michigan, but we don't always get that spring. That spring, is synonymous with love in the springtime necessarily. I just wanted to drop that Kid Rock line. I didn't have anything else to really
Totally
do with it.
Worth it.
Yeah, it was worth it. Now we have outro music, but I guess it is the idea. Then it's just like spring flowers begin to grow and they bloom later on, and like there's new life. Is that what they're going for?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we see later that Wilson's talking about pollen and whatnot.
Yeah, he does, but nonsensically. And
well, that's typical a little bit of him.
all right, spring equals #love.
#love. Yeah. So I mean, the next scene is still at home. A little bit later, we've got Randy and Mark, and they found a naked baby picture of Mark. And I kind of thought this would be used later in the episode to embarrass Mark.
Yeah, I did too. It's one of the rare moments, and you can kind of see Randy having to figure other things out with Brad kind of being busy with his lady friend, where Randy and Mark are just kind of like chilling. Like you don't ever see that. They're just sitting on the bar stool, kind of yucking it up, having a couple of laughs, and that's not something we've ever seen. That's also a very that's something that brothers would do to other brothers, or like I could see my like finding a naked picture of your baby brother.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
My
brother would definitely do that.
That seemed like very authentic to me.
So we go on in the scene, and Tim shoos the boys away, saying you shouldn't be looking in your mom's diary. Then immediately tries to go into the kitchen and sneak a peek, and Jill sneaks up to catch him, or sneaks up behind him and catches him. And so she decides she's going to hide it somewhere that he'll never, ever find it.
She keeps leaving it out in the open or putting it in very obvious spots to Tim, and he keeps finding it. So ultimately, she must not actually care if he reads it.
She actually wants him to find it.
Evidently. Hey, the plot needs him to find it. Or whatever semblance of a plot we have here.
Yeah, that's right. So the door rings, and it's Al. And he walks in, apologizes to Tim for screwing up the show man to man, he says. And Tim says to drop and give him 20, to which Al obliges almost immediately before Tim stops him. And that's kind of the second time we've seen this in back-to-back episodes. I think in the poker episode, you get Tim saying that you have to be...
To stay at the... you have to be on the bench. Al is the adult version of Mark in a lot of ways. Seems to just fall for whatever, people... They say jump, he says how high.
Definitely. So, yeah, they continue on the scene. Jill kind of asks what happened on the show, and he explains it. Then they start talking about Greta and filling her in on the Greta situation, and talking about how he wants to go on a date and everything. And Jill suggests that they should do like a double date for.
They call it a cookout. Yeah, but except it's like dark when they have it. like later on in the episode, it's pitch black out. They call it like a barbecue or like a cookout, but it's like 8 o'clock at night. So I don't know.
Yeah, we also find out that Al apparently gets put into the friend zone.
Yeah, Tim's bringing up the whole Jill saying, "Oh, be sweet to women, love sweet, sensitive men," and then Tim says, "No, women, yeah, be wild. Women like primitive men." And how do you feel about this, Jordan? You're kind of a sweet, sensitive man, I would say.
Yeah, thanks, Adam.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, I can't imagine that listening to women and kind of understanding what they might want or need is bad.
But Al is a step too far, right?
Yeah, I suppose he's kind of at one end of the pendulum, and you need to find a happy medium. Be some sort of a protector or have some sort of confidence in yourself. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, it seems like it. So So you're saying that your dream man is a combination of Tim and Al?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Is that's what I'm getting out of this?
Yeah, that's I mean, you know me so well, and that's certainly it.
Yeah, we won't dwell on that.
Yeah, so back to the show. We've kind of come to the moment of truth, and Al is staring at Greta. Tim encourages him to ask her out, and he musters up some courage. He goes in, they go into the audience, and everyone seems very excited about this moment. And Al figures it out, asks her out. Tim helps him narrow down the details, and I guess.
Yeah, I guess you've got to figure this is the actual show's audience, so they're probably excited by having a scene kind of filmed right around them. So I guess probably authentic sort of excitement, but. Yeah, he asked her out with a lot of force, and like Greta, what is he? Greta, I'm taking you out, or something like that. And she says okay, but he forgets to say like when and where.
Yeah, Tim definitely helps there.
And then Tim says, "Hey, come over to our place," and then the scene's almost over. But then an old woman stands up and says, "Hey, Al, I'm free today." And then Al's like, "But what time?"
Yeah, I don't even think he's joking though. I think he would have actually done it if it wasn't stopped.
Yeah, he was about to commit to a time and date.
Yeah,
so.
He was. So it's a pretty quick scene, and they're kind of moving on to another one. There's not a lot of scenes. They go back and forth though.
I was gonna say that there is a lot of different sets in this one.
Yeah, they're just kind of bouncing back and forth, and
yeah, they're just bouncing around a lot. They don't dwell on anything for very long. And usually I think that works out well, but in this one I'm not so sure that it did.
No, it kind of seems hectic almost.
It just seems kind of crazy, and it's boom, boom, boom. They don't settle on anything long enough necessarily to get any kind of momentum going, but we carry on.
Yeah, so we're back at home in the backyard. Mark and Randy are playing catch, and Tim arrives, and he wants to show off the grill. He actually got a propane tank. He made some adjustments. So.
And I think you know, and it does pay out. You know exactly where this is going. Yeah, it's just a matter of time.
No mystery here.
And it goes there. Home and podcast listeners, we get there.
Just give it some time. Randy makes kind of a clever joke here. Tim asks what are we going to be cooking with, and Tim wants Randy to say more power, but he says the fire department instead. So. Randy's still clever. We haven't talked to him for a while, but Jill yells from the inside, tells the boys to come in and clean up some mess, and that leaves Tim outside with, you guessed it, Wilson. So,
are we gonna go to? Do you want to play a clip here?
I suppose we could. Yeah, that could happen.
It's Wilson.
Yeah,
it's Wilson. We gotta play our Wilson clip.
Well, Tim, beautiful spring day. How is the enchanting maiden Jill?
The enchanting maiden?
Just waxing poetic, Tim. I can't help it. It's springtime, love is in the air. Can you smell that?
Does it smell like sausage?
I'm talking about pollen. Wafting from stamen to stigma, looking to create new flowers. Fly, little pollen, fly. Create new life. Pollinate and propagate. Get down. Oh.
Tim, I thought you said you were going to help me.
Ah, there's the enchanting maiden now. See you, Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that aforementioned and very hard-hitting spring talk. Hard-hitting spring talk. And at that point, Jill calls for Tim, and he is he's beckoned to come inside and help her prep for the, again, what they're calling a barbecue or a cookout, but is in fact just a dinner, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, they're not fooling anybody. But back inside, Jill needs some help with some boxes. They really they keep the spring cleaning going throughout the episode. And I don't know if you saw this, but Brad and Jennifer are sitting in like a one-seater couch together.
I didn't see that.
Oh yeah. So Jill looks over and Brad quickly gets up when Jill sees. So Brad and Jen are kind of getting a little bit close there. It's almost like Home Improvement After Dark.
Oh, yeah. How old's Brad again?
I guess he's 10 or 11, so he's in 5th grade. He's ready. It's time for him to meet the women.
Yeah,
and,
that is... I mean, all right, fine. Do you think you had a girlfriend at 11 or 12?
I definitely had one.
You probably did.
Yeah, I had one. I didn't... we didn't necessarily hang out or anything. I'm not sure it was serious.
I guess I also did, but I don't think she came over. I don't think we would have been sharing chairs or anything.
Oh no, that would have been much too far.
Yeah. Do you want to shout out your first girlfriend in the podcast or no?
No, not at all.
No, both probably listen. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
You're right. Yeah, that would be They don't want to be known as the girls that dated those guys that started their own home improvement podcast, but.
Or do they? Anyways, moving on. Tim wants to go into the garage to do some spring cleaning. He recruits Randy to help, and we find out that Jill has hid the diary. It turns out that Tim knows all of her hiding spots and knows exactly where this diary is. It's in the laundry. It's in the lint trap.
How would it fit?
I mean, it's probably a small diary. It seems possible to me. It would not fit in my lint trap.
What? Did you say lint tramp?
No, I didn't. But I don't know where that machine has been. So
yeah, it wouldn't fit in my it wouldn't fit in my lint trap or my lint tramp. So basically, Tim he's trying to get Randy to read the diary or open the diary or see what he can see so that Tim is not actually guilty of anything. But I was thinking, the implications of Randy reading his mom's diary are sort of strange. He could see something bad or read something he doesn't want to see. If she wrote this when she was in college, she probably wasn't writing it with a lot of discretion. So yeah, that just struck me as being very strange, don't you think?
Yeah, it seems like a pretty bad idea by Tim, which is not too shocking. Hopefully, if Randy read anything too bad, he wouldn't understand.
I guess, but yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't want to read my mom's diary from college, or yeah.
Yeah. So Randy, he thinks he has something here that he can use against his dad, that he can blackmail him. And Tim kind of squashes that pretty quickly. He pulls out the dad card. They open it up and they find kind of a saucy page that is interesting to Tim, that's talking about love. And Tim...
Right, it's really poetically written and she's clearly smitten. And then...
Yeah, it turns out it's Dan Lyons.
Dan Lyons.
No relation.
Sure. Yeah, didn't know if you'd want to reveal the same last name on the podcast, but no. Yeah, I was curious if that was a a relative or a brother of your father or something along those lines.
Yeah, perhaps it's a troublemaking Lyons that I don't know.
Yeah, the black sheep Lyons, the black sheep of the Lyons family.
Yeah, so Jill walks in. She catches him. Randy has to leave at this point. And they go a little bit through the diary together. Tim is obviously jealous, so Jill shows him an early entry of Tim, which is not necessarily the best. He's on campus.
He's hanging from a tree outside of a sorority house, and he's asked for the virgins, I believe.
Yeah, they need to wax his loins, apparently.
I think that's exactly right. So yeah, what would now almost assuredly get you arrested, perhaps kicked out of the university, for Tim was just sophomore year hijinks. Yeah.
Yeah, just another day for Tim. But no, they talk a little bit more about a spring weekend in which they fall in love. During a movie, he cries, and only in spring can you fall in love. So
in my experience, yeah, that's the truth. You can't fall in love in the winter. It's just cold and dark.
Everyone's putting on weight.
Yeah, everyone's putting on weight because you can't exercise, and hibernating, and
In summer, summer's too hot. Everybody's sweaty and
just perfect medium. Yep, perfect medium.
So back inside, we've got Jennifer and Jill. I think later on, Jennifer is, she's being a great guest.
And Jennifer's just got all the right moves. She laughs at Tim jokes. She compliments Jill's outfit, and she is just a Taylor sweetheart.
Yeah, she is. And Brad and Dad come down. Brad is a little embarrassed almost right away. Based on what her dad is saying, and wants to go outside again. So, again, Brad is just barely there and wants to leave all the time.
Quick comment. Did you notice Tim looking a little thicker in this episode? A little heavier set?
I guess I didn't notice.
I really noticed it here. I guess I always notice things like that, whereas you never. Either you're not noticing them, or you just don't want to talk about them because you know that there's only so far you can go with such observations. But yeah, I know he looks a little heavier in this one. Must have just been ill-fitting clothing.
Well, yeah, it looks like he has a collared shirt. He has a sweater on. He might have another layer underneath that. So, I noticed that,
okay.
So I guess I must pay attention a little bit, so...
I suppose so. So again, they're doing their nighttime barbecue, which I got beef with. But the doorbell ring.
Literal beef?
Oh, I got beef. The doorbell rings, and we're expecting to see Al and Greta, but guess what? It's just Greta, and she's crying, and she doesn't even know where Al is.
Why would she go to the Taylor house at this point?
How would she know where the Taylor house is? Oh wait, were they already there? Or did he drop her off?
No.
Do you want to explain it?
Yeah, so basically, Al and Greta are driving over. Tim gave Al some advice about backing off the sensitive stuff ahead of time. So Greta says that he's sensitive at some point during this ride. He rips open his shirt, shows her chest hair. And I don't know. I guess she freaks out. Gets out of the car.
I just really wish they would have showed it.
Yeah, this would have been a fantastic scene just to play.
They would never show that for obvious reasons, but I really wish they would have. That would have knocked this up to like top 5 or 6 for the season, just for that moment alone. As this season goes on, Al is less and less like an actual person. He's not behaving like anyone would actually behave. In the last episode or this one, I don't know. He's just continued, he's just serving the plot with, bizarre statements and just actions. He's less and less dimensional, it seems. And I don't know if that's, a Season 2 thing where he's going to become, more of a well-rounded actual person. But, he's not right now.
Well, we can only hope. But, yeah, Greta is crying. She's upset. I guess at some point, Tim leaves, and they're all of a sudden, on the Tool Time set, and that's where they find Al. Apparently there's only 2 places he would have gone, either his mom's, and she's at bingo, or the Tool Time set at night. So I don't know how he got in, but... It's
kind of clunky, that whole thing. All of a sudden, they're at the Tool Time set, and Al is there, and Al and Tim are talking. There needed to be a line where Tim said, oh, I know where he is, or where Greta said, he said something about going to the Tool Time set or something, but it just, all of a sudden, Al's not there, and then next scene, they're at Tool Time, he's there, and he's apologizing. So something was missing there.
Yeah, I don't know if they cut something or what happened, but, Al, back on the scene, Al is wishing he could apologize for how he acted, and it turns out Jill and Greta are actually off stage, and Greta comes out. They kind of discuss their nervousness, and Greta says she's never dated a celebrity before, so I guess Al is a celebrity.
Minor. And then Al says, yeah, me neither.
Yeah, so, they decide to start that over, and, Adam, where would you want to go if you wanted to start this date over to get off on the right foot?
Well, Jordan, if I had my druthers, I'd sit down for a rousing game of bingo.
Your druthers. Well, that is right. They're going to go to bingo. That seems like the perfect place, so...
Oh, gosh. That's why she doesn't ever appear on the show again, because they go to the bingo hall and it just goes terribly, because that's...
Hey, she agrees to this.
Well, what's she supposed to say? She's probably worried he's going to rip open his shirt again and howl like a wolf.
That does sound terrifying. But yeah, they run off. Tim and Jill are left on the stage, and they're kind of talking to each other about, Tim doesn't understand why Jill married him, or he doesn't believe it's because he's sensitive, and Jill tells the Dr. Zhivago story where he cried. So
yeah, and they talk about. That's the scene where they talk about like Sangren Hall, which is a real hall at Western Michigan University, one that I had probably 3-4 education classes in near the end, and I thought it was cool. I like hearing Tim had knowledge of the university, so he's throwing in real places and so on, and I think that adds to the element for me, because I logged lots of hours at Sangren, lots of late nights in my my education classes. So
lots of hanging from trees and yelling for women to come out.
Yeah, no, you couldn't have done not in 2008 through 2012. You'd have gotten booted for that. But they updated it was the Sangren Hall I went to was really on its last leg. But right after I left, they updated it. It is a very, very nice building now. So, yeah. But they don't show movies. They don't show movies there.
I guess they didn't fact check.
It's just classrooms, small classrooms at that. So
yeah. So this is the scene that we've all been waiting for since we saw that propane tank earlier. Back at home, the boys are starving, waiting for food. It turns out there's a mini explosion outside. Where Tim was charring a chicken, and he comes out all smoked, and the chicken's smoked.
They left all those kids there when they went to the Tool Time set, and I'd be a little worried about Brad and Jennifer sharing chairs.
Oh, man. Yeah. If that's any indication, things might have heated up back at home, not just at the propane tank. But yeah, Tim, exploded, the chicken's kind of on fire, and
he's like smoking. There's smoke coming off of him.
Yeah, he's.
It reminded me of that scene in. Have you seen Airplane? I hope you've seen Airplane.
It's been a really long time, but yeah.
Where he orders the tickets for the airplane, and they say, "Do you want smoking or non?" And he says smoking, and they hand him a ticket that's like smoking, like it's on fire. This was not nearly as good as that, but it reminded me of that scene in particular. So,
well, that's the bar.
Well, that's really, if you can become something close to Airplane, you're in pretty good shape. Last scene, outtakes of Randy and Tim in the garage. It's the scene where Randy tries to kind of blackmail Tim, and then Tim grabs Randy by the shirt and says I'm your father or whatever, but he keeps laughing. So they seem to be having a good time. They
do. It's kind of funny that Tim is the one that keeps breaking in the scene, and Randy does not. So Randy, good actor.
It is. It's noteworthy. Well,
yeah, is it?
It's apparently, in your opinion, you said it. Yeah. It's a worthwhile mention, and that's the episode. That is Al's Fair in Love.
Another episode in the books, and that brings us to the highs and lows section of the pod.
Have at it.
All right. Well, I mean, to me, it's another middling episode. I didn't like it a lot. I found the Al-Greta relationship underwhelming after all the build-up for all those months. I was glad to see Jennifer Zdarsky once she's back in the episodes. That's always a plus for me. I don't know, the diary stuff was just kind of silly. Like you said, just going from scene to scene, felt kind of rushed. I wish they would have spent more time at one scene, maybe developed a little bit more of what was going on. And if they really could have included that scene with Al and Greta in the car where he ripped open his shirt, that would have made the season for me.
Pretty much for all the same reasons you just said. There's nothing that this episode does especially well. There's not really even necessarily any. I don't remember it.
There's no aerial shots.
No, there's no aerial shots, which was, I didn't care for that. I liked it at the beginning when it was really meta and they showed them watching themselves or whatever. But no, nothing. There was no big laughs, no plot lines I found myself really caring about. The only thing I found interesting at all was when they mentioned Sangren Hall, and that was just because I was familiar with it, and I like those kind of personal touches. But yeah, the writing wasn't especially well done. Things were rushed. Too many different scenes. They should have dwelled on specific scenes or developed plots more than they did. And I'm just tired of seeing Al run around like a chicken with his head cut off.
Yeah, I suppose I would put this a little bit closer to Mo Better Blues than the other two episodes as far as the Elliot Stern written ones go.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Yeah, it is. It's Mo Better Blues. I have such a tough time remembering the episodes after we, especially watching like that's like 20 weeks ago, 20 episodes ago.
Yeah, I just kind of remember the lawnmower in the garage.
Yeah, I do remember that as well. Was that with no? That's Satellite with Rondell Kittleman. I was noticing the garage in this episode. Tim is not making much progress on that hot
There's
rod.
no time. You can't even spend any time in the garage.
Yeah, I mean, friends keep asking for help, or there's trouble with Charlie, or it's a debacle.
Yeah. So we don't have any mailbag this week, but if you want to reach out to us, you can do so on our website, thehomanpodcast.com, on Facebook.com/homanpodcast, on Twitter @homanpodcast, email us at homanpodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to rate and review us whenever you get a chance. And I guess we'll let you talk a little bit about Twitter, Adam. I'm sure you had some polls going on last week, and I think we all need to know the results. So,
yeah, I posted a poll after our last recording regarding Charlie and Robin's relationship specifically. How long it could last, and we ended up getting 8 votes. I think Twitter interaction and listenership was down this week, in the wake of all the news and such. But we ended up getting 8 votes, and the exact question was, how long do you give the Charlie-Robin relationship? And the options were, I'll start with 0% said forever and ever, so there was no faith in them. 0% said fire up chips, which is a Central Michigan reference. 25% said until the end of the day, and then 75% said until they have to drive again. So,
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like they're going to last, unfortunately.
Well, if you're going to tell your wife that she can't ever drive, that is going to kind of limit it's just going to be a problem. It's going to ruffle some feathers. That's essentially it for Twitter. So, follow us at Home and Podcast, tweet at us, holla at us, rate and review us on iTunes. We're on Facebook. We're still on Facebook?
Yeah. What do you mean we're still on Facebook? Is that like a veiled shot at my management of that page? That's what it sounds like.
No. I'm just wondering. If we're still on Facebook.
All right. Enough about contacting us. I think it's time for your favorite segment, my favorite segment, everyone's favorite segment, where Adam asks a question that he's made up, and we just kind of go with it and see what happens. So let's see what Adam has for us today.
All right, Jordan. I guess my first question is, have you ever shared a chair with anyone?
Whew. That is a tough question. I guess it depends on what kind of chair we're talking about. It's circumstances.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on the chair. No, my question is, this episode is related to spring, and spring as a rebirth of sorts, if you will, Jordan, and I think you will. Yeah. So what's your favorite season, or what's your favorite time of year?
Ooh. Well, it's kind of changed since I moved to Florida, but back in Michigan, it was fall. You got the cooler weather, the sweatshirt weather, going to pumpkin patches, getting some cider and donuts, all that kind of good stuff, good sweatshirt weather. But in Florida, it's definitely winter. I mean, it's, right around 80 degrees or whatever right now in mid-November. So it's perfect weather for, 4 or 5 months, and that's the way I like it. So what about you? What's your favorite season? I suppose it hasn't changed with your move to Illinois.
Still fall. Yeah, I mean,
probably similar.
Yeah, no, it's pretty similar. I think it's maybe a little bit warmer down here, just being closer to the equator. I still like fall for all the reasons you said. Summer of late, every year I get a little bit less tolerant of the summer heat, and I know it's not even necessarily that hot up here, but I just don't like it as much. And obviously winters are brutal in Michigan, Illinois, with the lake effect and so on. And I do like spring as well. It's when my birthday is, and for all the reasons this episode posits, the pollen and the love and baseball and so on. But yeah, for me, it's still fall. Just a little cooler, nice colors. I like the fall activities and the football and so on. So that's that.
That is that. And that is episode 23, Isles Fair and Love and War, which means I guess there's only one episode left in this season. It's kind of crazy that we finally made it through 23 episodes, 24 total in season 1. So we're about there. And next time you'll hear episode 24, Stereotypical.
We made it, Jordan.
Anything is possible.
We made it. We're almost there. Wow, it really hard to believe. So I think next week's episode we'll talk about that, and then we'll probably do some season and summation kind of stuff, top episodes, top moments, things like that. So if you want to let us know, we already talked about social media, but if there's anything you want us to discuss in regards to the entire season as a whole, let us know on one of our platforms, because we're going to be talking about some favorite memories and thoughts about the first season and just our general reflections on what we've been doing thus far. So
yeah, and we've got some changes lined up for season 2, so get ready for that. Get ready for a little new flavor, and let us know your feedback.
Yeah, we're rebooting the whole thing. We're started from the bottom. Now we're here. And on that note, this has been Home and Podcast, episode 23, Isles Fair and Love and War. Thank you, Jordan, for joining me, and I guess I should say take care.
Take care.
It was 1989, my thoughts were short, my hair was long. Caught somewhere between a boy and man. She was 17.